Good morning, aviators, and welcome to Part 10 of the F-15C Absolute Beginner's Guide, designed for new and returning DCS players. This video covers countermeasures, so chaff, flare, electronic countermeasures. Before we talk about anything else, let's talk about what controls you'll need to actually implement these systems. So you're going to go to Adjust Controls. You're going to type in under Search. If you just type in count, all of them come up. You're going to want to have a button or switch binded for countermeasures chaff dispense, countermeasures flare dispense, ECM, and you can also additionally use countermeasures continuously dispense. I have mine set up as well. You don't need that. I very rarely use it, and I'll show you why. Okay, coming back in, let's talk about how to load the countermeasures. There are two ways to load the countermeasures. One, before the mission even begins, if you are using Mission Editor, you go under the Weapons tab, go down underneath the Weapons, and you can put in how much chaff and how much flare you would like in the aircraft. The alternative way is if you are on the ground, so if you change your mind once you start a mission, or if you are playing multiplayer, you go Communications menu, you go to Ground Crew, Rearm and Refuel, and then you have sliders to adjust how much chaff and flares you want, and there's no adjusting electronic countermeasures. We have indications of countermeasures on board the aircraft. The multi-purpose display here, in the upper right corner, it should always display CHF for the number of chaff, so we have 90 chaff, FLR for flare, 74. I don't know why, I think I may have missed. That's just our wingman, F-15C. Not a problem. Sorry, that should have been 75, not sure why it's 74. Doesn't really matter. And then if we turn on ECM, which I'll explain how to in a second, we should see this symbol come up on the RWR. If it is flashing like this, that indicates that it is warming up. When the tick marks go solid, that means that the ECM is fully active. If we wait another 5 seconds, boom, there we go. It's fully active and ready to go. So, turning on the ECM is easy as just clicking a button and just waiting for this indication to turn solid. That's really all it is. As long as you keep it that way, you can have ECM for jamming purposes. That is how you jam against enemy aircraft, and we'll talk about some techniques here in a minute. If you want your wingman or flight to go ECM on, you go to the communications menu. Let's just go flight, ECM, ECM on.
Music on.
And it'll say music on, and you should reply. Perfect. Now for the rest of this training mission, I'm just going to turn it off because otherwise it causes problems. ECM off.
Music off. ECM on.
Alright. Deploying flares and chaff. We'll talk about techniques here in a second, but simply all you want to do is push down on the chaff dispense switch, and it dispenses chaff, and you have a light indicating that chaff has been dispensed. And we can see how much we have left on the multi-purpose display. Now use the flare dispense switch, and it does 2 at a time, and also you get a flare light illuminate. Now I'm going to take us off active pause here just for a second. We're going to go outside the aircraft so you can see what it looks like. So chaff, what you see thrown out the back of the airplane, essentially, is metallic shavings. And that is used to create an artificial radar picture to influence radars of planes and missiles. Now if you click flare dispense, you see 2 flares come out of the aircraft. That's so you know if you want to visually check that if it's working. Let's go back on active pause here for a second. So it's really that simple in terms of loading, seeing how much you have, the indications on the flight deck that show when the countermeasures are deployed. Now let's talk about some techniques. So I'm going to send my flight back to base.
Flight, RTB.
I'm going to take us off. Active pause. And let's spawn in a jamming practice target. Okay, so at 11 o'clock, we already have our ECM on, so that's good. Let's go BVR mode. Radar on. Let's scale out. I see the bandit or target. That's a confirmed bandit with our IFF. Go to TWS mode. Use our TDC to drag over the target and TWS target lock. I'm going to increase some speed. So, the bandit's azimuth is 319. Ours is 350, so essentially 33 degrees. I'll move it to 30 degrees here. So we have a 30-degree heading difference. Or I should say our bandit is 30 degrees off to the left at our 11 o'clock position. That's a good start. I've got AMRAM selected for this. Our jamming is indeed on. It's clouding his picture. At 30 miles, I'm going to reverse and go left of him. So right now we're called it's cranking right of him. We'll crank left here in a second to confuse him because he is looking, he's not able to see our heading, our altitude, or a lot of parameters based on our jamming characteristics. Now I'm going to crank left, and funny enough, he also turned left. I don't know if that's just an AI bug. Let me make sure he's not going after my friendly. Okay, he's not. Now he's actually going far away, so he's completely lost us on his scope. I'm going to increase to full afterburner, so you can see here on my controls. He's not even looking at us on radar, so we're in a really good attacking position. Now he's looking back at us. We're still jamming him. We're at 20 miles. I'm going to drop the external tanks. If you go Shift D, you can toggle over to center tank. That's all I have. I'm going to jettison it. Jettison, and we're able to increase our speed. He's almost up at 20,000 feet. Azimuth is 325. Let's get a little bit closer. We don't want to be quite that much of a crank. There we go, about 40 degrees. That's about right. Okay, 50 miles. At 13 miles, we're going to turn in based on this altitude here at about 15,000 feet. Got AMRAM selected. 13 miles. Alright, cranking in. Steering dot comes down to the datum line. Fox 3. Missile's gone pitbull. And let's just put him at our 9 o'clock. And we are entering what's called a notch. Still almost full speed. So he's directly off our 9 o'clock. I'm looking for him. I don't see him, but we're in the notch. There he is. We got him. Splash. Right there. We never even saw him. Just using jamming, we were able to hide ourselves till we got in close, fired an AMRAM, and sped away. Let's turn jamming or our ECM off. Let's turn back north. So that's a little jamming technique that you can use. Alright, I'm going to turn to a heading of north. Slowing down here to about 450 knots. Let's go flare practice target. Okay, so we're going to talk about some flare techniques. Let's try to find this guy. Oops, accidentally turned off the radar. There he is. TWS lock. We can see what type of aircraft it is. It's an Su-27, which he does have those the R-27ET, extended range thermal missile, so it's an IR guided just like the Sidewinder. So, the biggest thing to avoid an IR missile, which is locking us, we need to see that's launched. If we see smoke in the air and no RWR indication, let's first assume that's an IR missile. We need to cut the throttle to idle, so I'm increasing speed here so that when we cut the throttle, we still have energy to do some maneuvering. So closure rate aside, this is a very risky maneuver. I see smoke in the air, throttle to idle, barrel roll, and chaff. The missile is no longer tracking us. Looking back on target. If you're unsure, keep flaring. He's flaring now. He's fired again. Barrel roll. Flaring. And we have defended the missile. We have 2 more flares, so we can't practice any other type of defensive maneuvers. I'm going to shoot down and kill him. Alright, so I'm in the fight with him now. Vertical scan selected. There's the Sparrow locked on. Okay, I am in the turn, 300 knots. That's slightly slow. I'm full afterburner. Staying behind him here. Sidewinder select. Let's go back to Sparrow. Good shoot cue. Fox 1. And this is going to be a good kill. Okay, so that's one simple flaring technique. Gonna go AMRAM select, BVR mode, sped up to 40 miles. Now, the biggest thing, if you're evading an IR missile, throttle's idle, throw out flares. Every time you click it, more flares getting dispensed. Turn your engines away from the missile as you're flaring, and that should confuse it enough. The worst scenario is if one's on your tail. What you'd have to do is flare, roll 90 degrees, pull back on the stick, keep flaring as you go, throttle's idle, and hopefully that should confuse the missile. Now let's talk about Chaff. So I'm going to throw in a Chaff practice target here. So at our 1 o'clock, let's see if we can find him. There he is. TWS lock. It's an SU-27. I've turned the jamming off just so we can show Chaff principles. Now what we're going to do here, we're just going to use something called that notch, which means we need to get him on our 9 o'clock or our 3 o'clock. Now you want to, before I go into this, before we start shooting missiles, let's talk just a brief second more. What we're going to do here, we're going to put the aircraft at our 9 o'clock or our 3 o'clock if he's shooting a Fox 1 missile. If the missile warning comes from the aircraft, it's a Fox 1 missile. If it's a Fox 3 missile, we put the missile at our 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock. The other thing with notching is you have to be lower than the radar emitter. So in this case, it will be the aircraft. So we need to be lower than him. So the ground clutter confuses him. And when we notch him, our relative closure speed is that of the ground. So the radar loses us in the ground clutter. It loses missile lock. That's the aspect of a chaff and notch defense. So let's turn off, pause. Going to 500 knots, just so I can have some maneuverability. I'm not going to fire a missile here. I'm going to wait for him to fire. It's getting pretty close. This is a risky maneuver to be this close. I definitely would have fired something at him by now, even if it was a Fox 1 missile. Got him SCT lock, 10 miles, really close. We're lower than him already. This is a good start. There's the radar warning. Let's turn 90 degrees right, full afterburner, start throwing out chaff. Roll. Okay, not quite there. But there's no more missile launch warning. I'm not trusting it. Let's keep notching, keep flaring, keep him at our 9 o'clock. I see him there. The missile definitely did not track us. Whoa. That's my fault. That's my fault. I got way too close to the ground. I've lost him. Just keep that radar emitter at 9 o'clock. He's fired again. Chaff. Chaff. Flaring. Chaff. Okay. Missile lock lost. Now, just keep that closure rate. Keep him coming at you. Chaffing, 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 down to the ground. And it barely missed us. And he's going to hit us here. He's going to hit us. No. It lost it. Okay, so we're going to go away. We're going to use some terrain to mask against Fox 1 missiles. So the chaff and the notch worked pretty damn well right there. I'm not going to lie. Super effective. I think we're out of chaff. No, we got 34 chaff left. Okay. He's at our 6 o'clock. I'm at full afterburner. I'm going to disappear over this ridge. And this is what you could also use to defeat missiles. Alright. Idle. How's he still locking me? Has he still got me? I don't think so. Okay, so I'm supersonics here. I'm going to reduce throttle to idle. I'm going to try to get around him on his 6. Oh, he got me. So, what happened there was as I was going top up to him, my radar warning receiver cannot detect that emitter. Remember, if it's above 45 degrees relative to the wings or below, it will not detect it. So I never even heard that missile launch warning coming because I was in an attitude that the RWR cannot detect that emitter. So I I was being aggressive, trying to get around him. I could have kept extending away from him and wait till he was out of missiles, but I want to do something for you. So that's how you use the countermeasures in the F-15C to well, let's start. We know how to set the controls. We know how to load the countermeasures. We know how to see the countermeasures, how much we have, and what indications we have to tell that they have successfully deployed. How to use them, how to tell your flight to use ECM capabilities. We looked at a jamming technique. We looked at one or two flaring techniques, and then we looked at some chaffing techniques. Hopefully, all of this can help you become a better DCS pilot. If you enjoyed the video, I appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe. If you want to see future videos, please click that bell button. And as always, thanks for watching.